a scion of many worlds. He sits patiently as the very thorough scanning equipment tries and fails to get any proper information past his fur. The tensile strength of each individual hair is nothing short of obscene, and he has reached a point of being so well armored it can actually turn against him. This is going to be a problem. There's no way he can expect to stay perfectly healthy forever, and if surgery is impossible on him, because any and all scalpels will simply snap against even his softest and fluffiest bit of fur, then that's bad. This new metal you've alloyed your fur and bones is enormously resistant to everything, his mother says, and he sighs. I'm aware. I was thinking a little more on surviving the fight than actual long-term ramifications, Emmanuel states, and she sighs. I wasn't reprimanding you, but we need to be able to establish a proper medical baseline in case of future emergencies. So far, it seems the only thing capable of causing you any form of real harm is similarly imbued objects, or truly obscene amounts of energy in a thermal or kinetic sense. Your body is so naturally conductive that electricity passes through you without harm. The combination of exoskeleton and endoskeleton you now possess means you're supremely resistant to a crushing force, and with a human-style digestive system, you're highly resistant to most known toxins. You're not invulnerable, but actually hurting you will take far more effort than most peoples and organizations are willing to give. Dr. Morgana Skitterway explains, as she and a small swarm of drones circles the sitting Emmanuel. Well, what now then, Mother? We've seen a half-dozen differing Earthenai subspecies emerging, confirming the theories of the Nagasha subspecies all dividing due to a primal. It is nice to know that a popular theory turned out to be fact. However, there is also the consideration of the next primal leap, to put a nickname on it. Study of and understanding of the primal Nagasha regenerative shedding allowed the creation of healing comas and began a golden age for the galaxy where biological limitations in lifespan were finally, well and truly, overcome. Your own appears to be the formation of metal you've alloyed yourself with, which, while I will admit the nickname of Soul Steel is rather impressive, it's also not very informative. Well, if I called it death metal, there would be confusion between the actual alloy and certain forms of music, he says with a slight smirk. Emmanuel, take this seriously. We're in a lab. Morgana lightly rebukes her son with a smile. We have a lot of data. However, it will need to be organized before we can actually get something more useful out of it. Please don't tell me we're done. Then I'll have to leave and start leading people again, Emmanuel says in a joking tone and receives a very slight shove from his mother's clipboard before she sets things down. Then, we'll see about emotional stability and mutual recuperation. After all, it wouldn't do for the most powerful and aggressive member of an entire galaxy-spanning species to undergo a mental breakdown, Morgana says before cuddling up beside her son. I used to be able to fit you on my back. You can still give me a full 8 hug, Emmanuel says, as he gently picks her up. And soon enough, she's squeezing him with her 4 legs and 4 arms. I missed you, Mother. I'm sorry about... She gives him a much harder squeeze. It would likely crack brickwork, but Emmanuel is far tougher than that. His enormous arms engulf her in the shimmering white fuzz that covers him, and they just sit there, spending time in each other's presence and not wanting things to end. But reality has its way of intruding. It's rather rude like that. Emmanuel's communicator starts buzzing, and in the quiet lab, it's as loud as a siren. He lets out a rumbling sigh as time with his mother is interrupted, and as the all-8 hug ends, he checks the communicator. Of course, he mutters to himself after reading the message. Martial issues? Rulership issues, actually. I conquered the Miru Empire outright, and most of the upper class were far too frightened about just how much I was doing, and just how fast I was doing it to do anything. However, they're now petitioning for my attention, so this could go in a number of directions, really. I'm surprised they haven't denounced you as some kind of unholy abomination from beyond, Morgana says. I think it goes against their dignity to be afraid of an Orthani, so they're refusing to even bring up my species. He notes in an amused tone. And if they do, you send them right to me. I'm certain I can set them straight. Morgana assures him, and he chuckles. Thank you, Mother, but I think I can fight my own battles, he says as he fully rises up and then leans down to kiss her on the top of the head. But thank you. See you at dinner? It's in the schedule. See you then. Till then, Mother. He then leaves the lab. The specialized floors, designed for absurd punishment, have force fields effectively laying on top of them, allowing for trivial cleaning and preventing damage. He retrieves his vest and slips it on before buckling it up. An earpiece to contact him is slipped into the hidden place on the side of the head where he heard from. The fuzz was useful that way. It hid his nose, his ear holes, and if he kept his mouth closed, it hid that too. It gave him a poker face so good he was already the terror of the tables, and people were downright desperate to find some kind of tell in his antenna at this point. He steps through the gateway that leads out of the lab, and he's suddenly in the very heavily reinforced and well-monitored exit corridor for the laboratory ship. Each of the individual labs had no technical path out of the ship in case things got really bad, and an entire laboratory had to be jettisoned for the safety of the vessel. It was a precaution that initially was only for chemical and biological sciences, but standardization and mass production for this kind of lab grew so efficient that it became the standard pattern. He heads to the nearest airlock and quickly uses his communicator to confirm it's him. It opens and he steps through. After it seals behind him, it then opens in front, and the light goes from the white sterile laboratory levels to the golden glow of Lacran's yellow star. Hidden beneath the shimmering white fur, Emmanuel smiles. He doesn't so much jump out of the soaring ship as to gently lean over after standing upon the edge. His wings are still furled like a cape, and he just feels the air rush as the indistinct browns and greens of the land far below start to come into focus bit by bit. Then, at nearly a half-kilometer's height, he unfurls his large wings and arrests his downward momentum. Only halfway, though. The supersonic eartheny trick requires the wings either pressed behind oneself or held stiffly to the side for stability. But since his wings now unfold to twice their previous, relative size, he can do both at once. The sound barrier is more of an afterthought as he closes his eyes to protect them. The two extra sets of antennae bring in so much more information, even as they're plastered against his scalp. He's done this before, though. They'll snap back into position when he's done. Meru is mostly small villages spread out. The land is moderately metal-rich, but its main value is lumber, which is awkward in the galactic age that's coming down upon it with all the subtlety of an apocalypse. How many families below him are terrified for their lives and livelihood? The ships from beyond the stars are made of metal and not lumber. There is going to be little use for them. He shakes himself from that contemplation, even as the capital of Meru expands in his distant view. His wings snap out all the way, and he finishes his approach with a gentle glide. He is an enormous figure, and as his eyes open, he also sees part of the city looking back. He descends from above onto the main road that leads up to the central keep. His approach is met as crowds of Erumenta women crowd around him. Some cheer, some are in awe, some are terrified. None are apathetic to his coming. He reaches into an expanded pocket of his vest and draws out silver coins. He spreads them among the crowd as the cheering overtakes the fearful, even as he slips away from the crowd and makes his way on foot towards the central keep. By the time he passes by the guards to the keep, he has given thousands of silver coins away to better the lives of the women around them. Crashing the local economy isn't something that's happening just yet. The first major step will be healing the people so they can actually face the coming changes with sound mind and body. The shattering of culture and shifting of a world is going to be hard enough to deal with. While healthy, doing so while sick, feeble, or addled is just plain unfair. My lord, we did not expect you so quickly, there is, one of the guards states, and he holds up a claw. This one, among others, is almost compulsively honest and forthcoming. The woman seems to find the very idea of lying or hiding things to be unsavory and unclean. Don't worry, I've been given a briefing on the situation. Has anyone been injured? Or is it at most hurtful words? There have been threats and clear scheming. However, there's nothing that's been done. She says, and he nods. Thank you, Warana. You don't need to worry. My main intention is peace. He says, odd then that you introduced yourself as a conqueror, the halberd-wielding woman states. At this point, doing something that isn't odd would be the oddest of all. He notes as he approaches the large doors of the throne room. They're large, reinforced, and meant as a last bastion of protection in a siege. It takes 2 women on each side with axiom enhancements to open them. He opens them himself while barely slowing down, his enormous strides eating the distance in the room, and he finds himself near the center in less than 10 steps. There are roughly 24 Miru noblewomen. He recognizes them as the heads of their respective houses, and they look upon him in fear. Offering a smile as out as to see it, he would have to exaggerate it, and that would show off the rows of needle-like teeth he has, which is comforting to no one. So, may I inquire as to what festivities I must have forgotten for so grand a gathering to take place? He asks, and there's dead silence. Ah, yes, I almost forgot. He pulls out of a pocket the crown he had taken from Xavier and tosses it upward while also pulling out a star-patterned cape of the Order of Starseekers. The clasp has the Undaunted emblem on it, and as the crown is caught on and slides down one of his 6 antennae, the cape settles over his massive wings. Is that better? My lord, we were just discussing current events. One of the nearest noblewomen states. Like most of the higher-ups in Meru, she was a light Arumenta, and therefore was so blonde her hair glowed. Literally. Cut that with a fancy gown made with lace and eartheny silk, and she seemed quite well off. Of course. Is there anything I should be made aware of? I have been rather busy the last week or so, ensuring that the regenerative sleeps have gone by without fail, and then came the rather distressing situation where many eartheny began to emulate myself and were quite literally reborn. Good Emperor Moth, one of the noblewomen begins. She had used a trick on her clothing, so that the glowing light from her hair had spread over the entirety of her body to make her resemble more a luminescent being than a person. We were merely concerned to the state of both your ever-growing duties and that of our former empress. Would it not be prudent to have her rule as regent in your place due to your now much expanded concerns over the shattered remnants of the slaver cities, the diplomatic overtures with Greenstone and the Goldlands? To say nothing of Brightshore, the Serpent Empire, the Breakaway Empire, and your own duties to the Undaunted? I see. I am flattered that you think so well of me that you would be concerned of me spreading myself thin. Thankfully, however, I'm well versed in the skill of delegation. Much like how I have decided to not strip any of you of any but a few small powers. I have many individuals working towards these ends, and they have many individuals that help them in turn. I am far from stretched thin, Lady Luminescence. I see. If such things are so little a concern to you then perhaps we should speak on other affairs, she says, and he nods. Of course, is there a particular concern you possess? I was curious as to why you were prioritizing the old and sickly for these miraculous healing effects. It's quite simple. They are most likely to die before receiving aid. You are strong, well-fed, and unlikely to fall over dead at random. Therefore, you require a healing coma the least. You are not being snubbed, You are being acknowledged as strong. The strong need little aid, but the weak, the meek, and the frail. They need much aid. I see. Furthermore, this gives all the mighty of Miru the chance to demonstrate the virtue of patience, proving yourself as strong in mind as you are in body. You certainly have a gift for rephrasing an issue, my lord. Thank you. Now, what other concerns are there? Have the foodstuffs from the Goldlands been distributed properly?